Where were you September 11th, 2001?
September 11th, 2001, I was at my second day of work at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Hospital on the Upper East Side at 68th Street. I was in a hospital orientation.
When did you find out about the attacks?
I found out about the attacks from the person that was leading the orientation. A lot of us also knew something was up, as there was a lot of empty seats in the room that day. A lot of people didn't show up, and we all were wondering why. They first informed us that something had happened, that a plane had crashed, but they didn't say to what extent. It wasn't until actually after the towers both collapsed that they came on and told us about what had really happened. Back then, there was no cell phones that had internet service, so it's not like we could even look up on our phones what had been going on. There was a computer up in the front of the auditorium, and on a break, a bunch of people went up and looked and actually could see what happened. At that point, people started lining up for the payphone, as the cell phones that we did have were not working. The service had been pretty much overloaded that day. So people were just making phone calls to their loved ones to let them know that they were safe.
When did you get to leave work that day?
I left work that day shortly after lunch. They said that we could go. Before that, they had been preparing the hospital. They were taking in a lot of the patients from New York Presbyterian Hospital across the street. New York Presbyterian was a trauma hospital, and they were expecting a large influx of patients, so they were moving the patients over to Sloan Kettering, which is a cancer hospital and not really equipped for trauma. So at that point, I knew that it was going to be difficult to leave the city. There was lots of rumors that trains were canceled, things were shut down, there was no mass transit. So I went out onto the street, and there was not a bus, car, taxi, or anything on the street. I continued to walk about 25 blocks down towards Grand Central. While walking down, I passed a blood bank donation site where it was just blocks long, just hundreds of people looking to donate blood. I passed by, I think it was the Queensboro Bridge, with people on foot walking over, just trying to get out of the city. And the most surreal thing were circling overhead were fighter planes that were circling New York City to protect it from additional attacks.
How were you able to get out of the city?
Well, I got down to Grand Central Station, and at that point, they had said they were going to start resuming trains leaving Grand Central, one train an hour. I was lucky enough that the next train that was leaving was the one that I needed to be on. What they were doing was they were clearing each path out, each train track out, to make sure that there was no bombs. They were using dogs to make sure that it would be a safe exit out of the city. When I got onto the train, I had a little bit more perspective of what had happened. Everybody was just dirty, people full of blood, just looking to get out of the city. I spoke with a few people on the train, and a lot of them weren't even from the area where I was going. They just were trying to find a way out.
What was it like going into work and into the city after the attacks?
Going into work the days after the attacks was pretty stressful. I just wanted to make sure that I was safe. And there was a lot of rumors flying around that there was additional attacks going to happen and bomb threats. So just getting into the city every day and getting up onto the streets was something that I looked forward to. And then leaving, I just wanted to, after being from underground, just see that daylight each day leaving on that train. Unfortunately, there was people that I knew had been lost in the attacks, as there were people on the train that I would normally see that I no longer saw.
Did you personally know anyone lost in the attacks?
I didn't know anybody personally, but my old boss lost her fiance. He worked in the South Tower on the floor, one of the floors in the 90s, just above where the second plane crashed.